Hello there. I'm just gonna get my little system set up here. I think we're good to go. So welcome. I'm April. Hello, Jinky. How are you? So I wanted to welcome you in. Hello, Brussels 3. Where are people connecting from? Whereabouts are people located? Let me know if you want to. Hello, Firemouth Ministries. Nice to see you. So I'm April, and I'm the creator of the Love and Loss Project, which is a comfort and inspiration station for people who have experienced the loss of a baby or pregnancy. And hello! Today I wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit more about the idea of healing. Thank you so much for the hearts. I'd also love to ask that if you know anyone else who might benefit from this time, to send them this link or send them this video. Thank you so much. So feel free to share with me any comments or questions that you have, or if there's anything that people might find useful to discuss today, let me know, and I'd be happy to spend a couple minutes chatting about whatever is on your mind. So, but from my end of things, I want to talk a little bit more about the idea of healing, because obviously that's such a big hot topic in this area. And so one of the things that I wanted to address is almost just that myth of healing. And so I've always kind of had this thing where I cringe a little bit when other people use, and even when I use, the word healing when we're talking about the loss of a baby and grief. There's something that has just never really kind of fully sat right for me. Even though I do use the word myself, because there's kind of an absence of a word that would fit better. But my reason why I don't really like the word healing is because it almost kind of suggests that this, hello and welcome, it almost kind of suggests that this process is linear, or it's predictable, or it's that kind of seamless thing that we picture where we're like, you know, on some spa somewhere, and we're just breathing in the beauty of some gorgeous place, and our soul is healing, and that's what healing is supposed to look like, right? It's us and a cup of tea and a journal, and it's just kind of seamless. And I think that's a bit of a myth. Because what we're really setting us up for is the idea that our hearts and our minds would heal the same way that our physical bodies do, right? That if we cut ourselves, that our skin cells just kind of effortlessly move and form to replenish themselves and mend themselves and to fix the brokenness. And I think that's kind of the implicit expectation that we have of how we heal our heartbreak, and how we heal our loss, and how we heal our grief. And I think that is really important to look at the myth behind that, because my experience of healing through my grief has been far from linear or predictable or tidy. In reality, I think this stuff is a mess, and I think that it is the mess that is essentially the healing process itself. It is the moments of anger, it is the moments of jealous rage when you see other pregnant people and their babies and their little ones. It is all of that fire that we essentially have to walk through that is really where the healing takes place. And I think that we need to make room for that acknowledgement of the messiness of it, and of the discomfort and the agony of it. Because if we don't, then we can start to be really judgmental about our own healing process, and we can start to set ourselves up for really unrealistic expectations of how we should be functioning or feeling, or what roles we should be living up to. Because in reality, it's gonna be a bit of a mess. And so I often talk to people that, for instance, will go and participate in some of the things that they used to do before, like time away with their friends, that can be wonderful and great, but also has to come with that reasonable expectation that there are going to be parts of that weekend that are still potentially quite messy. There's going to be things that are triggering. There's going to be times where maybe you get hit with that wave of grief or emotion out of nowhere, and suddenly you're kind of on the verge of tears while sitting at the lunch table, right? And that's kind of just the reality of grief, is that the stuff is bigger than us, and it is humbling and crumbling in so many ways. And I saw this quote from Andy Warhol that I really liked that talked about the idea that we tend to say that time changes and heals things, but we actually have to change those things ourselves. And I think that also applies to healing and also applies to grief and loss, because we really use that phrase of time heals, right? Time will just kind of take you through this and will take you out of this. And I think that that's true to some degree, that essentially getting through the days can alleviate some of the pain in and of itself, just based on the proximity to the blast, to the hurt, to the loss. But I think that there's another layer to that that is really important, which is that the time itself, while there's movement in that, there's not necessarily, there's also stagnation, right? In that, yes, time is moving forward, but we actually have to do something with that time, because otherwise one day just looks like the day before us. A family member told me I should be over my loss. Honestly, I wanted to say something to hurt them. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So someone just mentioned here that a family member had said to them the idea that they should be over it, and how really offensive and hurtful those comments really are. And I think that sometimes it's helpful, and I don't know if this is the case with that particular person, but people say really bizarre things like that to us sometimes, right? You should be over this by now. That idea that grief has no time limit, but you really should be over it by now. And I think that there can be good intentions behind that, and sometimes people have a hard time watching us hurt, or they miss our former selves and what our former selves was able to do and offer in that person's life. But it's also completely inaccurate. Absolutely. I will never get over missing my twins. And I think that is such an important and really true point. We don't get over this stuff. I'm never going to get to a point where I don't miss my daughter and I don't want her here with me. I'm never going to get to a point where this is a non-issue, because this will always be a part of my life, and this will always be a part of our lives. This is now a part of my life story forever. And so this doesn't just become this thing of ancient past that is no longer relevant, because in reality, my loss of my daughter intersects with every other part of my life and who I am now. And so I have no desire or intention to ever want to be over this. Because to me, that kind of suggests the idea of forgetting her. And I'm really not willing to do that. And so even still, when I experience those moments of pain over something triggers me, even present day, I on one hand, I hate the hurt of those moments, and I hate how crippling they can be. But I'm also okay with the idea that this is part of my ongoing connection with her, where I will continue to miss her, I will continue to grieve her, and she will continue to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. So I think sometimes friends and family can want to urge us through this because it's hard for them to watch us hurt, and people, really want us to be better and be our old selves again. And in reality, while there may be good intentions behind those things, it can come across as really judgmental and really disconnected. Because I don't know about your experience, but what it makes me feel like is that really we are on two very different pages. If you think that I'm just going to be over this, or that I would even ever want to be. Because this is kind of the thing. It comes into this idea that our old life in many ways is over. There's been something changed that is irrevocable and irreplaceable. And what we are left with, and what I would argue is the task of healing, is recreating a life worth living again. And for me, that includes continuing to make space for my daughter's memory in my ongoing life. And so that will always be a part of who I am and a part of what my life looks like now. So to someone on the surface, that might look like I'm not over this. And I would say in some ways that might be true, and that I never intend to be over this. I do intend to be stronger and wiser and better, and I do intend to preserve and honor my little one's existence and her memory. And so that's very different than being over this. And so that's kind of one of the hard parts of all of this, is that it can feel ultimately like you're really judged and really alone and really misunderstood, because in people's attempts to sometimes be helpful, they want to really push us and fast forward us through the process of our pain. But the pain itself is precious, and the pain itself is sacred, because it is through the pain that we do heal, and it is through the living of whatever feelings that is that we essentially become whole again and put ourselves together in some new way. And so I think that we often have this tendency to want to sidestep the pain or really numb it. We numb it in lots of different ways, right? Some people numb it with food, some people numb it with alcohol, some people numb it with their relationships. We numb it by being busy, we numb it by whatever that is. But I think that there's really something important and sacred about making space for the pain in your life. For me, one of the ways that I did that was I took off really quite a number of months after I lost my little one. And when I talk to people about the idea of taking time and space in their lives when they need it, even if that's years later, but it's that idea of it's around the time of your little one's anniversary of when they might have been born or when you lost them, I think those times are still sacred. And I think there's something about making room for that pain and for ourselves to feel anything and everything that comes up or that doesn't come up during that time. So for me, I still take time off around the time of my daughter's birth and death, because for me, I want to be able to be present with the pain, because that is how I also honor her, and that is how I make sure that I'm taking good care of myself, right? Because I don't want to have to compartmentalize that. I don't want to have to turn it off. I don't want to have to push it down so that I can attend to other people's needs during that time period, or have to pretend or fake anything, because this stuff is real. This loss is huge. The loss of a little one, in whatever form that took, whether they were here in your arms or spent their entire existence in your belly, those lives matter, and it's significant, and these losses are so significant. And I think that we really need to be the ones to give our own selves permission to feel the magnitude of that, and to respect and acknowledge and recognize for our own selves the magnitude of these losses. Because if we wait for other people to give us the green light, or to kind of give us the seal of approval or the validation of take all the time you need, or you're absolutely right to be as devastated as you are, or of course you're feeling this way, if we wait for other people to validate our healing, there's a good chance that that's not really going to happen, or that it's going to bottom out at some point in time, like what people are identifying that they've experienced, right? And so I think we really need to be the gatekeepers, not only of our own needs, but of our little one's memory. And I think that this is one of the ways that we can continue to essentially parent children that we cannot see or touch or hold. We can make space for the pain. We can make space for their memory. And so I think that there's that idea of allowing yourself to feel the pain without getting lost in it. And that sounds really complicated, and it is in many ways, because we want to be able to be present for the pain as much as possible, because it demands to be felt, it needs to be felt. And I think that there's that idea of that which we resist gets stronger. For me, that idea of taking time off work was important, because as a therapist, I know that if we don't deal with things now, we essentially end up dealing with them in some other form, even down the road. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't having to turn off my grief. or shut it down or minimize it for the sake of functioning and doing other things or maintaining other roles. But I think there's that idea of allowing yourself to feel the pain but not getting lost in it. And to me, getting lost in it means forgetting that you are still alive and forgetting that your little one would want you to be happy again and forgetting that your little one would want you to experience the fact that you are still alive. And I think that there's a lot of really awful and inevitable dark thoughts that will kind of pull us down into that pain. But we also have to recognize that we do have some choice to think and tell ourselves different thoughts. And if we don't think some thoughts or tell ourselves some things on purpose, then our minds are going to go to the default, right? Our minds are going to get sucked into the pain and possibly stay there for a very long time. And so you have to find, what are your reasons for living? What is it that you are wanting to experience and do since you are still alive and you are still here? What do you want to do at that time? What do you want it to mean? What are you wanting to experience next? And so for some people, if that's the idea of parenting, then it's kind of starting to look at some point in time, whenever that is for you, about how you will create space in your life to have that happen again. If that's the idea of keeping promises or commitments to other people that you love and care about, then you need to keep that in the forefront of your mind, where you allow yourself to feel the pain, but also allow yourself to know that your little one would want you to still maintain these other important relationships in your life, and that other people need you here, and other people want the best for you and want you to experience your life. And I think that can bring up a lot of guilt, because we worry about the idea of essentially leaving our little ones behind, because that's kind of that cultural perception, right? Hence when people say move on, it kind of suggests that idea of, I'm going to forget them, you should just forget them, you should forget how it happened. And a lot of people get told that message directly, right? Because we're also at this intersection between the way that miscarriage has been approached in the past, which was absolutely as a silent topic, where people were told, and many people are still told today, to essentially forget about it, don't talk about it, leave it in the past and move on. And what many other people are starting to do today, myself included, and you that are all here today included, which is making these things known and talked about and break the silence around it all, because these things do matter. Our losses matter, our little ones matter, and our pain is valid, and it's necessary, and it is precious, and it needs your attention. And so I would encourage you to think about, how can you make space in your life for the pain, but also have a few things that you remind yourself about why you can't set up camp and live in those dark places either. So what are your reasons for coming back to the light? What are your reasons for getting out of bed and doing whatever else it is that you need to do with your day? And how do you nourish yourself while you do that, so that you have the support and the energy and the fuel to help give you even just that 5% little boost to help you get off the couch or out of bed or whatever it is, and either onto the yoga mat or at the table with your family or back to work, or whatever it is that is calling you and that you know still matters. So I thank you so very much for spending this time with me, and like always, I made a vow to tell my story so others won't feel alone like I did. Yeah, I made a vow to tell my story so that others wouldn't feel so alone, and I think that is so awesome. And clearly I so respect and share that objective, because I think that for me, and what I've heard from many other people, is that really is one of the key features of this experience of baby loss, is the isolation and the aloneness. So for me, that is the key motivation of why I do these Periscope broadcasts, because I want other people to know that this stuff is valid. Thank you so much. And necessary, and your stories and your experiences are necessary and they matter, and other people need to hear them. So I thank all of you so much. I really appreciate and adore this time, because for me this is a way that I also continue to honor my little one and to create meaning and purpose out of both her life and mine. So thank you so much, and I will see you again. And if you haven't yet, come over to my Facebook page, because I will be sharing some other supports and tools and ideas there, and I would love to connect with you more. So I will see you next time. Bye.